Hi friends, my name is Darren Gertis. I am going to cover what's going on in the news in Ukraine today. So the big story today is really political, and there's the hot war, the political, the economic, and it's political slash economic. These two are tied together, and I'll talk a little bit about what's going on the ground in Bakhmut, and then we'll do fun with Russian propaganda, Russian state media. But the big story is this. So here we'll start with Interfax Ukraine. NATO is supporting the creation of an international tribunal for Russia. Now, there's a reason for this, and we're not waiting until the end of the war. We're actually pressing ahead of time, and I think this is a really smart strategy. The NATO Parliamentary Assembly supports the idea of creating a special tribunal to convict Russia of war crimes against Ukraine and Ukrainians. Russia must be held accountable for its crimes. All the actions must be investigated, including war crimes, crimes against humanity, and possible acts of genocide. Now, this will put extra pressure on Russia ahead of time, but I think it's a good thing to just press forward. Just go ahead and do that. Now, with that, there's something that is coupled with Biden and Macron vow to hold Russia accountable for widely documented atrocities, and they're talking about the two leaders in a joint statement, so they're determined to hold Russia to account for these atrocities. And with that, we see another article here where Borrell says that Russia must pay for Ukrainian reconstruction. See, these things are tied together. If you can show the war crimes, you can show the damage, you can tie this hand in glove into what's going on with who's going to pay for this. Because what is going to happen if we don't do this is that the Americans and the Europeans are going to be on the hook for some kind of Marshall Plan in order to reconstruct Ukraine. And now, Ukraine has to be reconstructed one way or another. And if that is not going to happen, what you really need to do is it's kind of like whoever uses or damages the thing, you break it, you bought it, right? I don't mean that they bought Ukraine, but the Russians are the ones that broke it. The Russians are the one that need to pay for it. EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell said that the regional security talks on December 1st that he plans to discuss with his counterparts any available legal means to ensure Russia pays for the reconstruction of war-torn Ukraine. That's exactly right. That's exactly what needs to happen. Okay, now Russia is having fits about this. Russia does not want to touch this. By setting up a tribunal for Ukraine, EU, this is Pravda now, simply wants to appropriate Russia's frozen assets. Well, that's what the convictions here will allow them to be able to do. And they recognize this. This is a legitimate threat. The European Commission, headed by Ursula von der Leyen, said that Russia must also pay financially for the devastation it has caused. The damage suffered by Ukrainians is estimated at 600 billion euros. It's actually, I've seen estimates that were more than that. Russia and certainly the death toll and all these other things. I mean, it's on and on. Russia and its oligarchs have to compensate Ukraine for the damage to cover the cost of rebuilding the country, and we have the means to make Russia pay. We have blocked 300 billion euros of the Russian central bank reserves, and we have frozen 19 billion euros of oligarchs' money, Ursula von der Leyen said yesterday. The West, they say the West, wants to legalize the embezzlement of Russian assets. I mean, okay, as long as you're legalizing the embezzlement of Russian land, I don't see how you have a leg to stand on when you're complaining about this. You're going to complain about, hey, that's not fair. They're not following the legal process when you didn't follow you followed a sham legal process and everybody knew it, including you. And now you're going to complain about this? I mean, okay. Assessing the idea of the EU, a diplomat called it an example of what they call international order based on rules. They come up with these rules and then pass them off as universal, the official said, as opposed to what, annexing the 4 oblasts? Okay, so this is why it's going to come down to, Zelensky's right, it's going to come down to the military solution, right? Because Russia didn't play fair. They ignored the rules. They legally appropriated it, even though it was illegal. It was a sham. They did it behind, at the point of a gun. Okay. They'll try to justify it with a General Assembly resolution, trying to give this lawlessness some form of legitimacy. That's what they needed for, a Russian ambassador to the UN said. Moscow says EU's Ukraine tribunal attempts are illegitimate. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said, as for attempts to establish some kind of tribunals, they will not have any legitimacy. Again, as opposed to what? Your sham elections? We are not going to accept them. We are going to condemn them. But it won't matter because in the end, you will be made to submit. That's what's going to happen on the ground. Okay, RT, same kind of thing. Their argument. EU officials have said they cannot legally confiscate Russian assets that have been frozen under Western sanctions, and they're talking about how they're going to go about creating a mechanism to do that. That's what's going on here in RT. Let's move on to other things. So you know that there is. So yesterday we talked about how Ukrainian power was only 27% in the hole. The day before was only 30% in the hole. The day before was only 33% in the hole. So things are getting better, but there's going to be more missile strikes, and we know that. So I found this almost humorous, not actually funny, but almost like so. The opinion expressed by the CEO of and managing partner of Clean Energy Solutions, now again, that's where he comes from, was saying cities should strive to become more autonomous by minimizing the use of gas and increasing the use of renewable energy. Okay, yeah, true, but you know, the missile that blows up gas stuff is also going to blow up solar panels or whatever. So it's not exactly the best solution, but it can't hurt. I mean, if some countries wanted to supply solar hookups for things, sure, it can't hurt. It would actually be a little bit harder for the Russians to blow up all the little solar hookups all over the country than to, target centralized energy sources. But this isn't going to happen until this stops, and that's the air raids all across the country. Overall, air raid alerts are in place in Ukraine. Go to shelters, and it's happening in a larger way. Currently, satellite images show unusual movement at key Russian military airport. Experts see angles too in high combat readiness and warn of new powerful air raid on Ukraine. Der Spiegel wrote. Okay, I don't know much about Engels 2, but I don't like the sound of that and the missiles, being posed, as a threat. We're going to go a little bit further and look at not just the missile strikes now, but what's actually happening on the ground. Russian forces have been attempting to make further advances in the eastern region of Donetsk. Russian artillery hit Ukrainian positions in several towns in the area, including Bakhmut and the surrounding cities. So here's Bakhmut, and let's go to the deep state map and look at this. So here's Bakhmut. Now, I rolled the clock back about 3 days. So it's 11/26, 4 days. And so here's the progress Russia has made. It's not a whole lot. And there's not much here, and they're trying to get to Bakhmut, but they can't really, so they're trying to do it in the south, but they're not going to get it. Now, the ISW yesterday said this, and I said this a week ago. Russian efforts around Bakhmut indicate the Russian forces have fundamentally failed to learn from previous high-casualty campaigns, concentrated on objectives of limited operational strategic significance. This is the part that I said a couple days ago. Even if Russian troops continue to advance toward Bakhmut, and within Bakhmut, and even if they force controlled Ukrainian withdrawal, Bakhmut itself offers them little operational benefit. But there is one benefit, and that one benefit is that they can say, see, we've taken Bakhmut, which is like the one place where they haven't been rolled back. It's been at a standstill. They've been fighting and losing people for months on end over ground that they can't really charge. Go back like an episode or two, and where I show you the fields around Bakhmut, that's what they're trying to cross over. They can't get it, but if they were to take some part of it, they would be, see, we're still moving forward, where everywhere else it's been either stagnant or being rolled back. So that's what's going on with Bakhmut. Okay, now it's time for some fun with Russian state media. So here we go. Russia warns of huge risks of sliding into nuclear war. This is a perennial favorite. I think this is just lazy journalism. Like you dust off the same thing. The West is bad. They keep saber rattling about nukes, which they're not. And then Lavrov comes out and says, I can't understand why the West keeps saying this. This is also why we're so anxiously watching the rhetoric the West spews out, accusing us of preparing some alleged provocations using Western weapons of mass destruction. Okay, it's the same stuff. Nobody in the West is saying, hey, we're going to nuke you. It's not like that. Okay. This one was interesting. So we talked about the Holodomor over the last week, and that's where Stalin was starving out millions of Ukrainians, punishing them by taking their grain and then making them stay put so that they're going to starve, or deporting them, either way. So this is Medvedev talking about how Germans are now teaching us about humanism. Let them remember their own history, what they did to our nation's territory, he said, referring to the mass atrocities committed by Nazi troops between 1941 and 1945 on Soviet territory. Stop. That is absolutely fair. I have never agreed with him more that the Nazis did horrible, terrible things in World War II. But we continue. They are telling us about the Holodomor, something else. It's a shame to listen to all this coming from the lips of high-ranking officials. They should repent for 3 generations to come, he stated. Wait a minute. The Germans are now lecturing them about it. Let them remember what their history, what they did in the past. Now think about what you're doing in the present. See, that's the difference. What the Nazis did, they should rightly be ashamed of. I understand, and if you're German, tell me if this is true. I understand that in Germany, it's a crime to deny the Holocaust. Okay? Now, it was wrong, it's bad, it's terrible, but they're not doing that now. So you're complaining about them and talking about the Holodomor, which was also bad, which you're not actually saying this is bad, and you're actually doing it now. So stop that, idiot. Okay, so Russian forces destroy U.S.-made HIMARS systems in Ukraine. This is also a perennial favorite in Pravda. The HIMARS system was destroyed during a counter-battery fight in the area of the settlement of wherever. Yeah, okay. But then if you look in Western news, you find nothing. And HIMARS destroyed, not even a single HIMARS destroyed 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 1 month ago, 5 days ago. This is important HIMARS ammunition dump destroyed. Yeah, so no HIMARS have been destroyed to our knowledge, and it would make its way into the press eventually, and but they lie, and they lie, and they lie, and because they lie, we can't believe something like this, which if it was true, that would be bad, right? I mean, it would be. So, okay, at any rate, that's where we are. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening, and thank you for caring about Ukraine.